Trained dog summer.
Yes.
Trained dog
it's like
summer.
Hot girl summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hashtag trained dog summer.
Yeah.
Hey guys,
Hello, everyone.
we're
Welcome
joined with
Wow.
we're joined to hear. Okay.
Oh my God.
We're here today to. Okay, I'm just. I need a minute.
We're a little slap happy today, huh?
I'm not going to save you from this. We're just going to let you keep trying.
We're here with Snoop today as he joins our podcast.
Yay, Snoop. Welcome.
Yay, Snoop.
As he licks his wiener.
Nice.
You know, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do.
I brought him in fully expecting that he would lay on my lap like he's done in every other podcast we've had him, and then he abandoned me.
Yep.
And he posted up over there.
Yes, recently,
with Aunt Bridget and Uncle Seamus. So
recently I had a sleepover with Snoop, and we really bonded over our secret book club. We read in my backyard for hours, and he really loved that.
what kind of books do you think he would read?
He would read fantasy, like dragon books.
I could see that.
Yeah, like a sci-fi.
I bet he really likes the Percy Jackson
Yes.
series.
Yeah, and Lemony Snicket. He loves Lemony Snicket.
He does love Lemony Snicket.
I loved Lemony Snicket when I was his age.
Oh, are you coming back? You're gonna, just limp your way back over here,
let you figure it
asking
out.
for forgiveness. Yeah, figure it out, man.
You could definitely make that leap from my knee to your mom's.
Mm-hmm. You definitely can.
So what's
Don't
on
you
the
dare
table?
step on that side table.
The side table that was just there last week.
He's recently gotten it in his head that he can just walk on tables.
Yes, my dogs do.
I don't know what his where he got that from, but
Yeah, I had Paige over last week, and I just heard her being like, "Oh, Mom, Sunday's on the table."
hey Snoopy,
Yeah.
you do have to post up somewhere.
Well, now that the weather's getting nicer,
It's beautiful out.
it's been amazing. It's been great for my seasonal depression. Figured we would talk about kind of how to prepare for the summer with your dog, especially if you started training during the fall or winter time, and this is kind of your first summer with new routines. A lot of people I know, come summertime, they really want to do the patios and they want to be able to bring their dog on hikes and
Park
out
trips
to the park and all these stuff. So I figured giving those people and other people some insight on kind of how to best prepare and how yourself and your dog for those situations.
I think as trainers, we all are out all year round. It's like an all year round job. And I think that we all reap the benefits of the luxury of Edgewater being completely empty and places just not being as busy. So now that it's picking up already several times, I'm sure all of us have had experience with an off-leash dog or having to communicate with a person or somebody to keep their distance.
Yeah.
So I know it's happened to me recently with 2 off-leash pit bulls that came running over to me at Edgewater. And you have to do what you have to do.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
How'd you handle it, Bridget?
So I usually have a pet corrector on me, and this one day I didn't. So I had a leash in my hand, and obviously I don't know the temperament of these dogs, and I was with a little dog. So I had to really be defensive, and I don't know them. Woman's on the phone, not paying attention. So I just take my leash, and I do a little like this. And the dogs are like... And the lady comes over holding her phone. She's like, "Oh, they're friendly, actually." And I said, "It doesn't matter.
Yes.
Get your dogs. I don't like these dogs in my space." And luckily, yes, they did seem to be friendly, but don't catch yourself being that kind of person that has a dog go running up and charging somebody and being like, "Oh, don't worry, they're friendly."
Yeah.
Because that's very invasive and very rude, and just not good etiquette. And it's harmful to people that do have reactive dogs that just want to enjoy the same luxuries that everybody else gets to enjoy.
Don't risk your life and your dog's life based on what a stranger's telling you.
Yeah.
It's a very unfortunate thing that happens where people say their dog's friendly and then they go up and they meet on leash or whatever it may be, and then something's bound to happen. They get tangled up, and then shit hits the fan. So it is not worth listening to a stranger.
Yes.
When it comes to
I
that sort of stuff.
actually had a lesson last night where they were telling me they go hiking a lot. And this time they didn't happen to have their dog with them, which they were very thankful for, but they were just riding their bikes. And they heard in the distance a dog fight happening. And then they get there and it's like 3 dogs that all belong to like separate people that are just like going at it in the middle of this trail. And they were like, we're just going to keep going by. I was like, don't risk getting involved in something like that. It could be really dangerous. But I can imagine the situation started with like a, can our dog say hi? And then it was just a mess.
And there's sometimes that people feel the need to be polite and they lead with their politeness over advocating for their dog and understanding like the right thing in the situation is to say no. And whether you have to be really firm with your no or you can get away with like being polite, sometimes people need a little bit more firmness and that's okay. And it's okay to pet corrector somebody's dog. It's okay to smack them with your leash if that's all you have. Because your biggest goal needs to be safety of everything. And I'm not going to like risk, let's see what happens. I'm instantly going to defense mode. And I know that may seem like extreme for some people. But again, I've seen dog fights and I've seen off-leash dogs attack. And you just can't be sorry, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So going out this summer, especially at dog parks and stuff, obviously be mindful of it. I know you were saying you carry like pet corrector and stuff. And
Pet corrector,
yes.
dog pepper spray. I've never had to use this, knock on wood. But if I ever had to, I certainly would if I was in the middle of like a dog fight.
Yeah. And the pet corrector, that's just like air, right?
Yes.
Yeah, just compressed air. Yeah.
And
So
then-
no harm to anything. It's literally just meant to scare the crap out of the dog that's charging at your dog or you.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's in your right to defend yourself, especially if you feel like your safety is at risk and your dog's safety is at risk. And I always carry an extra leash with me. I don't know if you guys do that.
Yeah, I do.
I do
Just in
not.
case.
But it is really good. Yeah.
With and in these situations too, like it's one thing to be in an area where it's like you're allowed to, like dogs are supposed to be off leash. And this was because it reminded me of
That's a good point.
remember that reel I made last summer that everyone hated me for? Okay. We've almost reached a year, guys. But in the video I was talking about what to do if your dog if you get charged by like an off leash dog. And one of the biggest things that people were not realizing is that I wasn't talking about going to a dog park and doing those things. I was talking about like if you are out walking somewhere where there are leash laws in place and there should not be off leash dogs encountering you. This is what you can do for it. So like be mindful. Like part of having like a successful outing is, especially if you have a dog that can be more temperamental, is being choosy about where you go to take it. So like go places. Don't go down to Edgewater and the dog beach and expect, everyone's dogs to stay away from you.
Yeah.
So like be mindful of where you're going. Like when you were walking around like upper Edgewater area, dogs are not supposed to be off leash up there. Are dogs off leash regularly? Yes. And I'm not one to like complain or say that you shouldn't do that. I base it off of the individual. Like, do you have control over the dog?
Right.
Like because I know I like to have my dogs off leash in places where you're technically not supposed to,
Yes.
Yep.
but they're under control and they don't bother anyone or anybody else. And so I want us to be able to function. My ideal society is where people are just respectful of others.
Yeah.
And if you're somewhere where it is not expectation that dogs are socially going to interact, that you just don't force that on somebody.
Right.
And you allow them to have their own space. Like there's a a family that I see at Edgewater a lot that has this little Chihuahua like terrier mix, and it's always off leash. It's completely naked. It has no collars, nothing on it. But she's got that dog under wraps. Like whenever I see her with it, it's always right with them. If it starts to wander off, she literally like snaps her fingers, and that little thing comes back over. Like, and so I see her, and I'm like, oh, I don't have to worry about this,
Yes.
you know, because like I know she has control over her dog. So I tend to like, if I see a dog off leash, I keep my distance and I just observe for a little bit to see what.
Use your deductive reasoning. Say, is this a threat?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Generally, I try to avoid them no matter what.
Yes,
But if it's a situation where it's like, I need to get to my car and you are along the way, I will wait and observe. And if you have your dog under control, then I will say nothing to you and I'll continue on my way. If I can tell you don't, then usually I'll, you know, if I'm in a situation where I can't avoid you, I'll have to yell to you like, hey, can you put your dog on leash? You know, whatever. But keep that in mind too, that like a lot of what we're saying, we're not saying like go to a dog park and then be an asshole. We're saying like be mindful when you go out in public that not everybody thinks everywhere should be a dog park.
Yeah. You even see like it's very popular in the training world to like go outside of a dog park and work on desensitizing your dog to that kind of environment. But that is not a place that I would recommend because I can very much guarantee people leave the dog park off leash and have their dogs walk to their car. So we have to be really mindful and live in a realistic world where there are some areas that may not be for us and that we wouldn't want to take our dogs to. So I know that I would never take my dogs to the dog beach at Edgewater unless it were really early in the morning. And then if I do encounter an off-leash dog, I'm not going to be like, oh my God,
I'm just going to leave.
Leash.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to leave if I don't want to interact with it.
And you don't have to be like judgmental toward other people, but it's good to observe and see, does this person have control? And if they don't, like you said, turn the other way and walk away. No matter how perfect my dog's training is, I'm never going to put them in a situation where I feel like the other dog could instigate something and then my dog has to defend themselves. So,
because as annoying as it is, like that, I think if your dog is going to be off leash anywhere, you should always have verbal control over your dog, no matter what. But we have to remember that it is socially acceptable to go to dog beaches, dog parks, places where they're allowed off leash and have zero control. That's like socially acceptable. So you can't, again, like you're saying, Bridget, expect that like you could share the dog beach with another person, an off leash dog. And in a perfect world, you should all be able to like keep your dogs from interacting with each other and have fun on the beach and do all this stuff. But ultimately that's just not going to happen. So in like designated off leash areas, you kind of have to assume that it's because these people have zero control over their dog otherwise.
Yeah, like ideally it's you going to the beach is like, you go with your dog to be off leash, you throw the ball, you have fun, you hang out, but there just happens to be other dogs there as well. But like you were saying, there's not a boundary. And that's why we don't encourage going to dog parks either, is because you can't assume that the dogs there are going to be trained. You know, because most likely they are not. But in preparing for like those things, because like again, like with people that have started training are like excited with the weather getting warmer and stuff like that, that's definitely something as well that I feel like I really like having that conversation with clients in the sense of mentally preparing them for those situations where they're excited to do it, but like
they're still a little nervous.
Make sure, well, and making sure that like they feel confident too. Yes, because like that nervousness, if you go into that being nervous, you're probably not ready. You know, it needs to be something where it's like you have this game plan. Maybe you've gone to other situations that are less intense than what you've been building up for, like Edgewater on a Saturday, you know. It's something that like I really try to make sure that like it's even me going to like Sully somewhere. It's like, I'm only going to take him if I know I will absolutely be able to put the effort into working him in those situations and him being well managed enough that like I can feel confident taking control, especially if he's going to be off leash, you know?
I can definitely see your point, though. Like, I worked with Steve in like kind of in the end of fall, I believe, and we were just getting around to like going into winter when we ended his training, and we just did a follow-up because they were a little bit nervous about re-entering the world with Steve.
Yeah.
And we went to Edgewater and kind of got their confidence up because both of them admitted, like, you know, we're still a little bit nervous because it's a lot busier. Like, we've passed dogs successfully many times, but you know, like Edgewater on a Saturday, Sunday is like unhinged, crazy.
It is wild.
So we went on a Sunday and we started to develop a good routine of how we're going to fit into that park and how we're going to like come up with scenarios that may happen. Off-leash dogs running, pulling over, creating a lot of space. So if you do find yourself nervous to kind of re-enter the world and you have done training, I would definitely say reach out to your trainer and say, can we schedule a follow-up? I'm feeling a little bit nervous, and just having that second additional support can be really helpful your first couple of times as you're building your confidence with your dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I did a lesson with, I ran into you guys at the park with her, that Australian Shepherd, and she was nervous to do off leash, and like the dog was very ready to do it. As you saw, she was doing great. But so what we did to like ease her into it was we did a normal little leash walk with her regular leash around, and then we switched because she used to be very, very reactive.
Yeah.
And then we switched over to the long line, and I had her holding like the end of the 20-foot long line, doing a little loop around with that, and then dragging it and kind of like step by step, you know, doing the same thing. And she felt a lot more comfortable after that.
Yeah.
So those are like ways to ease yourself into it, is, you know, don't go to the park and then be like, bing, and take the leash off. And like, it's just fingers crossed, you know what to do. Because again, I'm still a very firm believer that I think there's probably more preparation that needs done in the handler's case for an off-leash dog than the dog.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You know, so you have to have good reflexes. You have to feel confident in what you're doing. You have to feel like you know how to address or handle any situation that could pop up. So it was definitely more about getting the owner comfortable and knowing how to handle things and what to do more than it was the dog.
And I think it was something, I can't remember if it was last week or when it was. I think you had said it too, but being like, I forget what it was. It was something with like being ready to have that confidence to correct is like the most important thing, because you have to assume that something's going to go wrong.
Yes.
It was something along the lines of that you had said, but basically to the point of like, go into it assuming that your dog is going to see that dog or that squirrel and like want to go.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you have to be ready for it.
Even if you've been perfect, you've been practicing your off leash and other situations and stuff, just be ready, you know?
Yeah. Well, because they're at some point, like, it's unrealistic to think that every dog is going to, like, even if you raise them from a very young age, that you're never going to encounter a time where your dog's like, but what if?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's just unrealistic.
Right.
You know, like, with him, like, it was like, from the time he was a baby, you know, I was instilling the idea of like off leash verbal control, you know, all that kind of stuff. But like, I mean, still he got to a certain age where he was like,
Right.
what if? Because they don't know what's on the other side of that choice until they make the choice, and then they find out.
Yep.
And you never want them to make that choice and you not be able to give the appropriate feedback for
Exactly.
something
Or
like
them
that.
not understanding the feedback, and the only time you've corrected them is when the specific off-leash session, and then they react negatively to the correction, and they're like, see ya, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that your dog has a very clear understanding of, one, what they're being corrected for and how to fix themselves from that mistake.
Yeah.
And I think you said it a couple months ago in a post that you made, like, off-leash dog is not meant to be absolutely perfect, and they never make any mistakes. An off-leash dog is a dog that has tried making mistakes and has learned from those mistakes. So everybody can feel a little bit better.
Yeah. Like the point that he was at when I would like, or with any dog, when you start doing off leash, it shouldn't be like, let's see what happens. It should be like, I'm prepared for anything that happens.
Yes.
And I know exactly how to
Confidence.
address what's going to go. And like, you want it to be to the point where I was 100% confident that the dog knows what the expectation is when I take that leash off. So if they do something incorrect or wrong, it's a conscious decision they're making.
Yeah.
And not just like wow, I've never experienced this kind of stuff before. Let's just see what happens if I do this and this and this. It's like, that should not be your dog's mindset the first time that you do like off leash.
Yeah.
It should be like, we're confident they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And if they make a wrong choice, it was intentional. And then when you give a correction, they're like, word, fair.
Yeah.
I won't do that again.
Because especially off leash, again, like being prepared for it, like you're naturally going to be on higher levels, you know? So it's something where it's, again, like you were saying, like if you're already going to go, you know, you're going to be up on higher levels. If it's the first time you're doing it and you just blast them or something and they don't know
like,
why,
what the
then
hell?
then most likely they're going to run away or something and make the situation worse, you know?
And the leash, like itself, that we've seen in many cases can be very psychological to dogs. So it is important that when they get unclipped, sometimes that can be a whole different mindset. And they're like, sweet, there's nothing tethering me to you. And that's where we want to go in and do the training wheel sessions of like dragging a long line beside us, where we're not physically holding a leash, but even like stepping away from the long line to being completely free. That can be a psychological thing for dogs as well. So it's making sure that we feel really confident about our dog's ability to listen and come back to us.
I even had a dog I trained once, a husky, that of course was a husky, that had a very ingrained habit.
Oh yes, I remember this dog.
When you like unclipped the leash and they like heard the clip, it would instantly bolt and take off no matter what.
The male husky that you worked with here?
Actually, no. But now that you're mentioning it, he also had a similar issue.
Yeah, I remember like viewing that, like being at one of your sessions at the park and seeing that and how you worked through that.
Yeah. But so what I ended up doing was basically we had 2 leashes. On the dog. And so like we could work through the idea of that sound and the mechanics of a leash coming off without actually losing the dog and him getting some reinforcement out of being able to actually get away from us.
Because even if they can't get far, just like getting 5 feet, they're like, sweet.
And it was just like, it was so... It was, again, an instance where I don't think the dog was actually consciously choosing. I think it was a behavior that was so reflexively conditioned that it was just like, it didn't even... like there was no room for a thought before it happened. It just happened. But so we had to like do other things to manage to work up to, you know, being able to do like full off leash at that point. But
I think it's like also good to note that there's no rule that says your dog is at this pivotal point of training when you can be fully off leash. If you don't want to put your dog off leash and you don't feel comfortable with that, it's not something that deems you being successful. If that is a goal that you have and that you want, of course we can help you work toward that and finalize those details. But there are some people that are like, I don't want to do that. And that's totally okay. Nobody's making you do that. If you never want to have your dog off leash and they're still very obedient and well behaved, that's totally fine.
Yeah. I think that is important to note that it's like being off leash does not mean that like you've reached the peak of training. You've gotten like checked all the boxes, because that's
and
not
there are
true.
some dogs like that struggle with just whether it's their lifestyle that aren't good candidates for that, like that could pose a risk. So like aggressive dogs or dogs that can be very temperamental may not be good options for that, because if somebody does come running at them, or we have to err on the side of humans just being stupid, like it's not safe. Like if they do make a mistake, they really make the mistake. So we have to look at like muzzling and doing other things that keep everybody safe.
Yeah.
I'd say like the dogs that either could take the longest to get to where you're comfortable off leash, or theoretically would never be a good candidate off leash, are always like the more flighty ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or like when it's very ingrained, like
the ones that are like half feral.
like the pot cakes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pot
Yeah.
cakes. They're probably not a great off leash
Yes.
candidate.
No. And like they're just too flighty, and it's like you spoke about, ingrained in them to have that fear. And part of their gene makeup is being feral. So
Yes.
it can be very hard to break. It's not that you can't have success with those things. It's just like, well, maybe if a car backfires or a firework goes off,
It's risky.
Yes, it could be really risky. So it's okay if you never get to that point, unless you really, really, really want it. And then like working toward that can be a conversation.
Yeah. Yep. Another thing too, it's not necessarily more like public, but having people over for like a cookout and stuff like that and everything.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
we get a lot of phone calls around this time of the year. You'd be like, Uncle Bob was over and we were frying up some burgers and he just attacked him out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then you pick back the layers of the story, and Uncle Bob was having a couple beers, went over and smushed the dog's face and got in his face.
Getting a little too comfortable.
So that's a good point, is like, how do you successfully ingrain like having more people over?
Yeah.
I feel like something we've never talked about, but is like a good blanket statement to make, is like, if you're going to have a bunch of people over and you're all going to be drinking, just put your dog away, please. Don't leave your dog out.
Yes.
That's another
Put
thing
them
where
away.
people feel like it's the pivotal peak of training, is to be able to have your dog out in these situations.
Like at parties and all that kind of stuff.
And one, it's very
Dogs
stressful.
don't like drunk people.
No.
They don't like drunk people.
And then if you're drinking as well.
And drunk people love dogs.
Yes.
So that's a
Not a good
bad
blend.
combo.
Yeah, if you've had anything to drink, you can consider like, act like it's like drinking and driving, drinking and training.
Yeah.
Don't mix.
You're not
They
gonna be
don't
able
mix.
to. You're not gonna be able to focus on your dog and listen and see what your dog needs in those situations of having 20, 30 people over for a cookout and stuff,
Yeah.
especially if you've been drinking.
Yeah.
So it's just better just to put the dog
Drunk people can't even pick up on the social cues of their own species.
Yeah.
So let
Yeah.
alone the social cues and subtle signs of like a dog.
away. Right.
So you just have to be very careful with that. We get a lot of people that their dogs bite somebody
Yes,
because the person was drunk and was being an idiot,
Getting in
and
their face.
all this stuff. So it's just not worth it.
I know another big thing is like resource guarding too. Like at
Oh, yeah.
cookouts, you put your plate down for a second, you go and grab a drink or something, you come back, and like the dog's
dog's
sitting
like-
there or whatever. Yeah, like
Like,
being
this
very
is my
mindful of
plate.
that.
Yep.
Children running around in the yard, playing with toys, kicking the ball around or something.
People
like that.
bringing their own dogs over.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
These are all just very easily solved by just putting the dog away, right?
and if
Because
you're
really the only other option is to put them in a downstay, which is
Then you have to
very
focus on that.
restricting. Yes, and it's something where it's like, you need to be much more on top of it than you do, like, in my personal opinion, than like a bed stay, where
Yeah.
they have a little bit more flexibility of moving around and adjusting and stuff like that. Generally less like stimulation, I feel like, inside than outside.
Yeah, a lot of times it's easier to just put the dog away. If they're not going to be out, then what you need to expect of yourself is that someone is going to be in charge of like monitoring the dog so that they're not stealing people's food, they're not jumping, they're not doing, all these different things. And that can be difficult, especially if you're the one hosting, when you're trying to like go in and out and get things and talk to people and get drinks and, all this stuff. So, but we're not saying you shouldn't have your dog out at these parties. You just have to make sure it's an appropriate type of party to have your dog, and that you're being mindful of how to manage them well. So that could look like while you have to run inside to go get something. So whether it's like your significant other, whether it's a friend that is good with your dog or is good at managing, you say like, hey, I'm running inside real quick. Just keep an eye on Fluffy for me, you know, while I go in. Like you have to make sure you're delegating these responsibilities so that people are aware and you're able to manage the dog the right way.
Mm-hmm.
I find it extremely stressful to have a large amount of people at my house, and like we'll do like a get together for Friendsgiving in November, and we have a lot of people over, and I've experimented with both having my dogs out and just like trying to be loosey goosey, and my stress level is so much higher because I have a couple of dogs, and just managing everybody, even if some are friendly, like some are very much temperamental.
Yeah.
So this last year I locked everybody up the entire time, and my stress level was like so much less. And obviously I told everybody, please don't let the dogs out, because you may have those friends that come into the house, open the dog's crate and start snuggling, and you're like, excuse me.
Right.
Do you live here?
Well, especially because, especially in a situation where it's like, you know, if you just have that one person over and they're hanging out with one of the dogs or something like that, right? It's like they build that relationship of like, oh, well, Spork's always fine with me.
Yes,
like it'd be fine if I just take Spork out. Like it's
Yeah.
fine. But then like Spork comes out because he sees one person that he knows. Then he looks around the room and there's 30 other people around and instant panic mode, you know? So
Suddenly he's screaming.
right.
Yes.
So yeah. So it's even if you know that you and that dog get along, listen to the owner's rules.
Yes. Yeah.
Just listen. Just respect it. You know.
Yeah, and it can be pretty stressful. Like I notice in previous years when I had my dog out, their stress level, like they were like, why are all these people here? And my dog is typically very friendly, and I could just tell his behavior was off. And in that moment, it's not something that I want to find out how much we can push him or how far like people can come up and start picking him up and holding him.
Yeah.
It's just like I prefer to put them in their crates. And I'll be honest, one of my dogs has a jumping problem, and he's a big shedder. So when he jumps on people, he sheds all over them, and you can just see it in people's faces when they're like pushing him off. So like I've been
Not
really
me.
cognizant. Yeah. I've been really cognizant of not allowing him out of his crate, because I'm not in a position that I want to be responsible for him jumping constantly.
Yeah.
So I'll just put him in the crate because I want to talk to my friends. I don't want to be like,
Yeah.
no, and then have to correct him a million times and then have him be just shaking under the bed because we're not consistent about that boundary in his everyday life.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really bother me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, and that you just pointed out something that's a good point that we make a lot, is that if you're not going to correct a behavior, then you have to manage it.
Yes.
Yep.
Of like when it's okay and when it's not okay, you know? So like I have plenty of clients that are like, well, I don't mind if my dog like jumps on me. And I'm like, okay, we don't have to fix that, but you have to recognize that they'll jump on everybody then.
Yes.
Yeah.
It won't be just you. And they're like, oh, well. And I'm like, so then that turns into either they have to be on a bed stay the whole time guests are over for the chance they might jump on them.
Yeah.
Or they have to be put away. And if you don't want to do that, then you have to either accept they're going to jump on your guests, or you have to tell them no jumping at all.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Because the dog can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
Yep.
And being inconsistent is another point that I made, that I know that I'm not consistent about correcting my one dog for jumping, because it really doesn't bother me. He doesn't do it to us, but he engages a lot in strangers. So it'd be really unfair to slap an e-collar on him in that specific moment that I really cared about it and just nail him, because he's a very sensitive, very like neurologically strange,
Special.
yes, dog. So that would maybe in turn have him have a very negative view. And a lot of people think, oh, like I don't want my dog to have a negative view of people coming into my house, and correcting them for jumping won't, but only correcting them for jumping on people and guests. They could be a little bit more fearful and like just like superstitious of guests, you know?
Yeah. Well, because the corrections are only happening
Yes.
because of that.
Yes,
That they're
but
not happening
normally-
in every other context where he's jumping.
If you're really consistent and on top of it, like that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Because they'll put together the corrections are for
'Cause
the
there's no
act
confusion.
of jumping,
yes.
not for jumping on this person. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. Patios are another one.
Yes.
Like taking your dog out to like a patio.
Yeah.
I have a lot of clients that do that.
I do enjoy a good patio, but again, with the expectation that there's going to be other dogs there and there's going to be drunk people. If you're going to a place that serves alcohol, and I'll take my most stable dogs. Like Sunday is so chill and I can take her anywhere. But patio season, like if you do enjoy that with your dogs, like just finding a place, I tell clients like finding a table in the back.
Yeah.
That your back can be toward like a wall or something, and you can see who's coming in and who's coming up to you.
I have a client that has one of those like roll up mat things.
Oh yeah.
So they'll like go to a patio and they'll put their little mat down. They do a bed stay on their mat.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah. And like she loves it. And she does great with it. And they're really good about kind of doing what you said, where they'll scope out and get a spot that's kind of out of the way, the corner. They'll put the dog where you can't easily access the dog without having to like go past one of the humans or something. And they're great at advocating for her, you know, of like not letting dogs come up to her and stuff. Like she's fine. Like she's a stable dog, but you know, she's not going to want to be bombarded the whole time that she's
stable
out.
because her owners are advocating for her.
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
You can't have one without the other. You cannot be able to go to public places and be like, I'm too shy to advocate. You have to be like, your boundaries are your boundaries. And something that's very common in my experience is when the waitress comes over and they're like, oh, puppy. You don't want to be a dick to your waitress. So like right off the bat, you have to be, I'm like, sorry, they're in training. Thank you. And like that kind of situation, or if children are running around and they're like, can I pet that dog? And you have to be like, no.
Yeah. And you have to like, so something I was talking with one of my clients earlier today about, that's a different situation, but a similar parallel, is like she has a dog that has fear aggression issues, and we were talking about the whole like use the muzzle until it feels stupid kind of thing. And I told her, I was like, basically your dog is transitioning out of, he's the one that is out of control and creating issues, and that's why he's wearing the muzzle, to now where he's wearing the muzzle because we have control over him, but we cannot control the environment. And if the environment is silly, that is going to make him silly because he's still not, his tolerance level is not to the level that we would want it to be.
In a vulnerable state.
Exactly. And then we're like, he's not going to cause the issue. But now if like, you know, someone runs up or someone does something suddenly, or a kid were to run up to, you know what I mean? Like those are things that most certainly at this phase would set him off. I was like, until you feel like the environment and the variables you can't control would push boundaries of his, and he has the mental capacity to like think before he acts, that's when, you know, you still have to keep using the muzzle at that point. Like with my dog, I know that like if I'm out in public and someone runs right up to me and gives me a hug, or like a kid were to like touch him on the butt as they walk by, or, you know, those stupid little things that people do when they're not really thinking about it. His instinct is not going to be to like bite first and then ask questions later.
He's going to be like,
he's going to be like, what the heck was that? But he's not going to do anything.
Right.
And so it's like, that's where you have to get a dog to safely be like, okay, I don't have to have a muzzle on them 24/7 every time they're out in public. But you still have to be mindful of where you're taking them. Like, am I going to take Lumos to a patio that's enclosed where there's could be families and kids running around and stuff like that, where the likelihood of him being like in a downstay under the table and a kid maybe crawling up behind, you know what I mean? Like there's just too many variables there.
Too many people
that it's like, just because I could doesn't mean I should, nor do I want to, because then now my meal is watching and having to advocate for him, which is just annoying.
That's stressful. Yeah.
You also take the risk of like creating another bad habit, you know, or another bad situation or a negative association with large gatherings or something, where it's just like, if you're not prepared, again, look confident enough with dealing with the situation yourself, then you shouldn't have your dog there.
Yeah.
Because it's something where if something were to happen, the one chance that the kid crawls underneath the table and grabs him from behind or something and he does nip it, one, obviously that's bad. That's bad situation. But also it's something where it's just like you've now given him the
he's like, fuck
the
them
reason,
kids.
yeah, like
them
the
kids
reason
and
to
fuck
like
you
be like
too.
scared of that situation, right? He's like,
Yeah.
I knew this was gonna happen. This is why I was nervous the whole time. I knew that kid was gonna touch my butt, and he did it anyways, right? So
And
like,
you didn't do anything, and you weren't paying attention.
exactly. Well, that's how I see the situations at
Yeah.
least. Is like, so it's like, so why let your dog basically win that situation? Where it's like, if you're ready, if you're prepared, then you go into that situation. You have success, you walk out successful, and then you can look at your dog and be like, see, you're a little wimp.
Yes.
You're fine. You know, like the whole world isn't out to get you.
And going at times that aren't like peak times. Like I went to trivia night at a local brewery that was just awful with the manners that they allow. And I didn't bring my dog, luckily, but the behavior of everyone else around me was like astonishing.
Yeah.
And I had to be like, I have to leave because there's just so
the
much.
place up the street.
Yes. There's so much going on right now that's so unsafe, and I can't be here to witness it because I'm not giving unsolicited advice to people that don't want it. And it was just very hard to be in that environment because there's like kids walking up to dogs like toddlers, grabbing their ears, and it's like dogs they don't know. And I'm like, I gotta go.
You're like, I'm going to see something traumatic any moment, so I need to leave.
And I took one of my foster dogs to that place, and again, we had our backs to like a wall, but it was like around that time where those lantern flies were. flying,
yeah.
and somebody got up really quickly to step on one, and this dog full on like lunged at this person, and I was not prepared for that at all. So I was like, damn, like if I'm doing things like this with a dog that's more temperamental, you have to be prepared for like everything.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I like, truthfully, one of the main reasons that I only do outings with my dogs that are like dog focused.
yeah.
If it's like a thing I have to do and a dog is just allowed to be there,
Yeah.
I will not be bringing my dogs
Yeah.
because I don't want anybody to have any more reason to speak to me
Yeah.
than
Hey.
normal.
And you don't enjoy
Like,
that.
I want to go somewhere and sit at a table and not have to talk to every single person that walks
Like,
by
oh,
about my dog.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
I
I know
pet
they're
her?
cute. I just want to be left alone. And so it's like, but I can't get mad at them for that. Like,
Right.
of course, people see dogs. They're like, oh, hi, puppy, you know, whatever. It's like, if I'm going to eat, I just want to be able to eat.
Yeah.
If I'm going to a store, I just want to go to a store. If I'm, you know what I mean? Like, unless it's like we're going on a hike, we're doing something that is like for the dogs, they're not coming.
Yeah. I've like grown out of that a lot in the past years where I was like, oh, I want my dogs to be able to do these things. This is so cool. Just seeing like just a pain in the ass, like to take them to coffee shops or patios. And it's like not something I necessarily enjoy anymore. Like I rather do like a hike where my dog is intentionally enjoying that and she's not just forced to stay in a downstay as people drink around her, you know?
Yeah.
Just easier to leave them at home.
It is. But yeah, if you're going to do a patio, you know, have your dog, you can get a little mat like my one client does, have them in a downstay or a
That's a
sit
really
stay or
good idea.
something. Make sure that you're advocating for them.
Go into it thinking that it's a training session. It's not like, oh, this is my relaxation time, because it often won't be. You're like, I'm training my dog and getting something to eat or having a beer.
That's I take Sully to patios a lot, but it's mostly before or after we've gone
Somewhere
to
for
do
him.
something.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like, okay, let's do this session. I'm going to have a beer or two, do the session, hold that downstay, be good. And then when we go out, you're in kind of work mode already. So then I can let you go and we can go on a hike or we can throw the ball or something like that, or do that first and then go to the patio. But yeah, I try to use it as like, I want him with me, of course, but it's also something where it's like, I'm still letting you know that you're still doing something, right?
Yeah.
This is not the play area to do this.
That's a
Yeah.
good
You know,
point.
this isn't the roughhousing kind of go and say hi to everyone, get all the attention that you want. This is not where it should be stimulating, necessarily like actively stimulating.
Yeah.
It's going to the park after or before that we do that. And then it's here, it's like, okay, now take it in.
It's
and
like a
adjust.
passive.
And it's like a chill thing.
Yeah.
Like with my small dogs, like I'm a nervous wreck. Like it's one of my like OCD things is like I imagine terrible things happening to them. So when I'm out in public with them, I'm like scanning and it's just not a good time for me. So it's like not something that I enjoy, but it sounds like you like to do stuff like that with Sully from time to time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take Snoop to like, he's my like craft store buddy.
Yeah.
He'll go with me to like Michael's and Joann's to like get yarn, shit like
You
that.
can take your dog there?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's great.
It's a good spot. It's good to know.
But yeah, I'll take him there for that one because like there's likely no other dogs
Yeah.
in Michael's or
And you're
Joann's.
not
when
going
I'm
into it like fighting.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's more relaxing because, like you said, I don't think I have as much anxiety as you do around the small dog stuff, but I definitely do look at it a lot differently when he's out with me in public versus like
You're
my
not
other
ignoring
dogs.
the fact that he's smaller than your other dogs.
Oh yeah, you know,
Yes.
like I'm very much aware that it only takes a second for
Yep.
this fragile little being, but
Yes, yeah.
yeah, so I'm picky about where I take him. Like, I don't think I would ever take him to like Edgewater. I'm very picky about. I really walk him around like my neighborhood because I know the houses that have dogs. I
Yeah.
know all of that kind of stuff.
Yes.
I take him on hikes in places where I know that it's going to be very low chance that we're going to see anybody or any other dogs or anything like that. So I'm very picky with him. 'Cause-
Yes.
And
But you're still
selective.
able to do all these things.
Oh yeah.
You know, so it's like that's kind of like the mindset and kind of the idea of like what I was thinking with this whole topic is that like you want to do things with your dogs. So you've mapped it out perfectly and you plan out, you know where you can go and you know where you feel comfortable, so that he can always have success and you can both enjoy those situations.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And
for
that's
sure.
really like the whole idea of this, this topic is that like you should be able to do stuff that you want to do with your dogs, but just understand that you have to be ready and your dog has to be ready to do that.
There's
too.
like a
Yeah.
routine that you go about it and like going into it thinking like this is for my dogs and I
Right.
have to be like half aware of everything around me. And sometimes it's okay if you don't want to do that. Like it's okay if you don't want to have a patio dog. Like there's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
I wish
Yeah, I
more
think-
people thought like that.
I
Yeah.
know. I think a lot of times, especially the patio situations, it can be. This is kind of a leap, but with people thinking their dog is more of like an accessory.
Oh,
Than,
100%.
than,
That's
like,
what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they're like.
That's
"Look
not
at
a
my
leap at
dog.
all.
Look at my dog. You know what I mean? Like so.
Oh yeah.
That should not be the reason that you want to bring your
It's like
dog
people-
out to public.
Yeah, people get their dogs or take their dogs out for the literal exact opposite of the reason why I don't.
Yes,
Is
right.
because I don't want people to talk to me
Yes.
and engage with me. People love that about their dogs sometimes when
And,
they
like,
go out in
love it. It's, like,
public
a
and
conversation starter.
oh yeah. No, thank you.
Even having Pip in the pouch, like I went to a bar and had her in a pouch, and this guy with like 3 teeth, he like pulled out the bar chair and he's like,
Stop
and he starts like reaching for Pip, and I'm like, no. And I was like, that was very much an invitation for him to start talking about the dog, and then
Yeah.
like start pulling out a chair for me, and I'm like, no, thank
Oh
you.
my gosh. I used to take Cash to bars when I
Yeah.
was like, I was about to admit to being underage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But I used to take Cash to
What?
bars
That's
when
illegal.
I was of age.
Yes.
And
underage drinking, not cool.
but I would take him and because he was probably
Was
a
he
year old.
underage?
He was underage.
Yes.
He was like a year old too, something like that. And he would just literally like wander around.
Yes.
God bless him. He was just
Things he did
wandering around.
before-
Oh yeah, before I was a dog trainer.
Yeah.
He just wander around. I'd look back and he's like, I think I have a picture somewhere in the depths of like my Instagram or Facebook of him sitting up like a human on one of the like the like booths in the
Yeah.
bar. And he's just like sitting with like random people and
You're like,
he's just
"This is
hanging out with
fine."
them and having a great time.
Yeah.
God bless him.
Yeah.
Those first dogs we get as adults, they really go through it with us
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I used to
when we have no
pass
idea what we're doing.
Nelson around at bars. And Nelson bites people in the face. And I was like, what could go wrong with this?
Hey, it's just a small dog. What's the worst that could happen?
My mindset has shifted so much of
Oh, it's crazy.
public sessions and things
Yep.
like that. Like,
Yeah, it is insane.
Yeah. The ignorance is bliss, man.
yes.
And
I
that's
was
where it's like-
blissful back then.
I can relate to people. When I see people doing stupid shit with their dogs, I'm like, I get it because I did the same
Yeah.
stupid shit with my
Yep.
dog when I didn't really know any better either.
And I think that's the sympathy too of like being the trainer and having clients that are going through certain situations. It's
You're
like
I
Yeah.
did that once.
right. Like if you don't know, you're making a mistake. And that goes with a lot of dogs with their issues as well. If you don't know you're making a mistake, you're not going to know until it's corrected, until you're told plain
Yeah,
point
don't do that.
Hey, that is wrong or stupid or you shouldn't do that. Right. And then if you continue to do it, then you know, and then you're stupid.
Yes.
Then you're ignorant or whatever. But if it's something where you don't know, it's like we get the sympathy. We're right there with you. We were there in the past. So
Yes. I
That's
kinda
why
wish-
we're warning you now.
Yes.
yes, exactly. So if you're
We've-
listening to this,
We've
you have
done
no
it
excuse.
ourselves.
And we've reaped the mistakes.
Yes.
of
Yeah.
seeing how that ends up, which is why I don't do things with my small dogs anymore.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because we've had a lot of issues.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
Are there any other? I think we kind of touched on all the main ones.
The big ones at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
The summer cookout, the parks, patios.
Yeah. So enjoy your trained dog summer.
Yes.
You know.
And if you feel like you want to reach out, if we've trained your dog and you want a little refresher,
Yeah.
you know, hit us up.
Yeah.
You know,
I just had a client message me the other day and said, because we did training in like winter-ish.
yeah.
And they were like, hey, can we do a follow-up for like off-leash specifically? Because like now the weather's nice and all this
Yep.
stuff. So like this is the perfect time, guys. Perfect time.
Yep. Yeah. Hit us up now. But
Cool.
yeah. if
Thanks
there's
for
any other
joining us.
situations,
Enjoy your summer.
enjoy it with your dog.
Trained dog summer.
Yes.
Trained dog
it's like hot
summer.
girl summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hashtag trained dog summer. Let's get it trending,
May
guys.
you
Yeah.
be safe and productive out in your sessions.
As well as your dog.
Yes.
Safe
Yes.
and productive.
And bring water.
Yes. For you
Water
and
for
your
you
dog.
and your dog.
We should do safety.
Yes.
Safety in the summer with
Yes.
dogs next
Yeah.
time.
Like if you have a certain breed,
Yeah.
don't walk them when it's 70 degrees out.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do that. Looking
All
at
right.
you, bulldogs.
Bulldogs. The squish face.
The Frenchies.
Yes.
The
Frenchies,
Toonies.
The tunes.
Did you know technically Chihuahuas are brachycephalic?
Yeah.
Oh,
These
really?
ones too. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they're technically.
Or there's certain like head shapes that make them more prone to that.
That makes sense. Interesting. There's
He
your fun
farted.
fact
Did
of the
you
day.
guys smell it earlier?
No, I didn't.
He definitely farted.
Toonie doesn't have
Sure.
the smarts to like get out of the sun, so like she'll be on my back and she's like, and like Toonie, there's shade all throughout my backyard, and she's like, I'm dying. Inferno.
It
Parasites in me want to.
The parasites want me to die.
All right. Bye, guys.
See ya.